Welcome to Entertainment Hub, where we break down the best, the worst, and the downright strangest in entertainment. Today, we're exploring a topic that lives rent-free in the minds of 90s and 2000s kids, the hidden, uncovered horrors in children's media. These weren't just quirky moments of darkness. They were outright terrifying and, sometimes, unapologetically gruesome. Let's dive in. No conversation about horror and kids. Media starts without Courage the Cowardly Dog. This show wasn't just unsettling, it was nightmare fuel. Remember King Ramses? The pale, skeletal figure wailing, returned the slap in a hollow, echoing voice. The CGI animation felt alien compared to the hand-drawn style of the show, making him even more terrifying. Or take Freaky Fred, the barber who obsessively shaves people bald while narrating his thoughts in a disturbingly calm tone. The show's ability to mix bizarre villains, eerie sound design, and existential dread blurred the line between horror and humor, leaving kids everywhere asking, how was this even allowed? Next up on the list is The Brave Little Toaster. This 1987 animated film about anthropomorphic appliances might sound harmless, but its themes are anything but. The scene where a broken air conditioner essentially dies on screen, in a fit of rage, horrifying. The junkyard sequence where cars are crushed to death as they sing about their obsolescence, existential horror for kids who barely understood the concept of mortality. And don't even get me started on the creepy clown dream, a flaming clown chasing you with maniacal laughter. This wasn't just a whimsical scene, it was pure nightmare fuel, and it left scars. Next, Coraline. While Coraline was marketed as a family movie, it's basically a horror film disguised as a children's story. The button eyes of the other mother are a striking visual, but it's her slow, grotesque transformation into a spidery monstrosity that cements her as one of the most unsettling villains in children's media. Add to that the imagery of sewn mouths, decayed ghost children, and the other mother's eerie control over Coraline's alternate reality, and you have a movie that taps into some primal fears: abandonment, manipulation, and loss of identity. Then we have Watership Down. This one feels like a bait-and switch. You think it's a simple story about rabbits, and then you're hit with brutal scenes of violence, rabbits fighting to the death, being suffocated, and even ripped apart by predators, all of it depicted in graphic detail. The most infamous scene is when Fiverr envisions their warren being gassed, shown in surreal imagery of rabbits clawing and dying en masse. It's a haunting allegory for survival and war, but it's also deeply traumatic for a child expecting a cute animal story.
The secret of NIMH was darker than it had any right to be. A story about lab rats and mice. Doesn't sound horrifying until you see the flashbacks of animal experimentation, the imagery of needles, glowing red eyes, and the concept of genetic manipulation is creepy enough. But then there's Nicodemus, the ancient rat with glowing eyes and a spectral presence that makes him feel otherworldly. Add to that the constant threat of death hanging over Mrs. Brisby's journey, and you have a kids' movie that doesn't shy away from heavy existential stakes. If you thought The Wizard of Oz was whimsical, its unofficial sequel, Return to Oz, went full horror. Dorothy is sent to an asylum and nearly subjected to electroshock therapy before escaping into a post-apocalyptic Oz. But the real terror? Princess Mombi, who keeps a collection of severed heads that she swaps out at will. And the Wheelers, nightmarish creatures with metal wheels for hands and feet. The entire film is drenched in an oppressive sense of dread, making it one of the most unsettling entries on this list. Next up is Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? These anthology series were horror training wheels for a generation of kids. Goosebumps had moments like the haunted mask fusing to a child's face, while Are You Afraid of the Dark gave us episodes like The Tale of the Dead Man's Float, where a waterlogged corpse rises from a school swimming pool. These shows often balanced scares with humor, but their imagery and themes like identity loss, curses, and death were genuinely chilling for younger audiences. Over the Garden Wall is a masterpiece of atmospheric horror. Its autumnal setting and surreal characters evoke a constant sense of unease. The Beast, a shadowy figure that preys on lost souls, is terrifying in his ambiguity. Then there's the episode with Auntie Whispers, whose grotesque face and unsettling mannerisms mask a dark secret. The series plays with themes of death, despair, and redemption, crafting a layered story that's both haunting and beautiful. Let's not forget one of Disney's earliest films, Pinocchio. While it's remembered as a classic, the scenes on Pleasure Island are horrifying. Kids turning into donkeys, screaming for help, and being sold into slavery? It's a brutal depiction of consequences that feels jarringly out of place in a film otherwise about innocence and morality. And there you have it, the darkest corners of children's media that were somehow labeled as kid-friendly. These stories didn't just entertain, they left lasting impressions, shaping how many of us view fear, morality, and storytelling. If you enjoyed this dive into childhood nightmares, make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know your most terrifying childhood moment in the comments. This is Entertainment Hub, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.